Okay, this is where it slips into obsession. I'm going to go through real quick how you can come up with a sketchy physics road down something with some topography, concentrating on the use of layers. What I've got up on the side right now is a zoomed in vision of Rib Mountain, and I have got my model here set to decimal feet. I go out and grab Rib Mountain. It brings in the information, and I had to be certain when I had my Google Earth up that I had my terrain layers on, so I'm going to check that. I see here that I've got terrain snapshot and terrain elevation. So I have both a snapshot and terrain. You're going to want to sketch on the snapshot or a face like the snapshot and have the terrain on when you need it. So we're going to go ahead and have the snapshot on, turn off the terrain, and then go to a point of start playing around with layers. So we're going to go to Windows, Layers, make a layer here and call it Flat Work. Basically our horizontal alignment. I'll also go with a layer something like Drape Work, and you'll see later those are going to become important. I'm going to go to my Flat Work here, and then it becomes a little bit easier to work in this world if you're on parallel projection in a standard view top. I'm going to be very, very basic here, and I'm going to not use horizontal work, but I am going to sketch over the road a little bit here. That road here, if you notice here, I'm going to be doing a lot of on face and group to keep these things flat. Later on we'll talk about how we can go about and put some curved geometry in here, but we have to remember that civils, we think, or many people, we should be thinking in straights first, and then later on in curves. And so we really want to visualize, and zooming in and out here, we're really trying to visualize where those lines would continue through. Zooming out here, those axes kind of going. This road has actually been in the middle of rebuilding, and I'm going to check in a little bit. I'm going to take it all the way up to the top now. Now I have to double check what layer was I on when I was drafting, and that layer on Flat Work makes it pretty easy now, because now if I go and turn on my window, layers, and turn off the snapshot, I have my work that's there. I'm going to now turn on the drape. I'm going to turn on the Google Earth terrain here and take you out there. I'm going to show you a nice skill here. This Google Earth terrain, if you look at it, again, I'm going to turn the layer on the terrain and not the snapshot. We're going to show you here a pretty useful thing sometimes is to go ahead and learn how to move and copy something that's locked, but I can grab it, grab that, maybe I can't. So I'm going to unlock it, and I'm going to take that, grab it, selection, I'm going to hit a control key and take it down maybe 10,000 feet. That gets it out of the way, which means later on I'll be able to bring it back. Now I have something I can kind of play around with a little bit better. I can take this and I can explode it, and then I can also take this and right away, you notice there I've got my layer. I'm going to go back and get my layer, my flat work off and my drape work off. I'm going to go to layer 0 here, turn both the flat work and the drape work off. Take this here, and I've got all that. I've gone and exploded. I can now, I'm inside of that. I don't actually want to explode it yet, so I'm going to undo layers, edit, undo layers, edit, undo, explode, because I need that to stay. I need that to stay a group or a terrain model. So I'm going to double click inside, and I'm just now going to paint everything, something that makes it a little bit easier for me to deal with. I'm just going to paint it. And these are not necessary steps, but you'll see later they're kind of nice steps to have a nice neutral topography there. You can do it any number of ways, but since I've copied my terrain model down, I'm generally okay. I can go ahead and paint everything a nice translucent glass layer there. So now when I do this, and now I go back to my layers here, turn on my drape work as my current, and I have my flat work on as well, I'm hoping that you can see at this point the line work there. So you've got that set of line work which was drafted up on the flat. What we're going to do now is we're going to grab all of our line work and use the drape command, once again being aware that our layers are set to drape work, so it's going to drop it on a layer called drape. So when I do here, do the drape command, select the mesh to drape on, you have it there, which means now when you go here and turn off the drape layer, I'm going to erase everything else out. So you can go here, we're going to go now Windows, Layers, go back to the layer 0, turn off the drape work, and now we can actually turn off the flat work, and we can eventually just get rid of all that stuff. I'm sorry, not get rid of, we have to go ahead and explode. And now when we go about and turning off our, once we get all that, we explode it. I presume when we go here, erase, when we now turn back on the drape work, we have that 3D line work there. So just showing you how layering works, and what you've got now, you've got some 3D line work that is actually in elevation and it's hard to see. So the last thing we'll take you through then is how to go ahead and change your coordinate system and extrude through there. So we're going to make another layer, Windows, Layers, we're going to call it Extrude work, or whatever you're going to call it, cross section, Extrude work. And we'll make that our current layer at the moment. And very often you're going to learn that that's a pain in the butt to have that around, but it's important to have it around when you do this. In terms of the axes on, one of the key things about any program is to proactively determine your coordinate system, and so we're going to try to grab the edge of that, and it's not grabbing the very end, so we're going to try it again. We're going to try to change our coordinate system to there, basically that it's established something along that line. I'm losing it here. Zoom out a little bit. So I've established kind of a plane that's right at the beginning of this thing. Now it's not perfectly, so if we go back here and go one more time, change my axes, now is it on the edge? It may or may not make a difference here. So I'm going to go ahead and draft a box that hopefully takes, and we'll pick this up a little bit later here because it's not necessarily grabbing the way I want. If you notice here, it's not bad. I'm going to push this out because I'm looking for a face that is perpendicular to my starting face. All I'm going to do now is draw some sort of profile that we want here. And if you notice right there, as I began that first line, I'm only lining up with this one. So if I go ahead and grab this one, hit the control key from the center, bring it to my my origin there, I now have something that I'll be able to push through, and this you'll see is kind of that pipework thing. I'm going to go once on a regular basis, turn off these axes, and realize that this may or may not work for everything, but I'm going to grab now my objects, remember what layer I'm on. I am now on the extrude work. I've drafted on extrude work, and I'm going to go ahead and extrude all that through by using the follow me tool. So I'm going to grab all of the things I want to follow along, and we'll see what happens now. Even though I went all the way through, if I say no, follow me, I grab that face, it actually did a reasonable good job on that. I've got all that done. It's a pipeline going down a road. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this. Right away in this program, you've got to remember very often what you want to do is you want to take something here and make it a group. Being aware of what layer you are on. You've got a group though. Now if you think about this here, if you bring that up back to 10,000 feet, remember that, bringing it up. Again, you're not finding axes. What you've got to very often do at this point is remember to set your axes back. So you do that by actually having your axis there. clicking on the axis. Anywhere on the axis, it turns out, right click and reset. That resets, which means now if you bring this thing back 10,000 feet,